one, you need to realize democracy in America is secretive and mostly run with very little oversight. I'm talking about the companies that run every facet of our nation's elections, from manufacturing electronic voting machines to the software used to register voters and even to count the vote itself. All of it is subject to very little oversight. The problem with these electronic voting systems is the software codes are claimed to be, quote, proprietary trade secrets. Therefore, it is nearly impossible for governments to fully investigate them, leaving our democracy at the mercy of these private corporations. That's totally unacceptable. We already know a, quote, glitch in Michigan's Dominion election system resulted in 6,000 Trump votes going to Biden. The software responsible, Dominion, is used in 47 Michigan counties, not to mention states across the country. The president's attorney, Sidney Powell, leveled this charge. Listen.
They had this all planned, Maria. They had the algorithms, they had the paper ballots waiting to be inserted if and when needed. And notably, President Trump's vote in the blue states went up enormously. That's when they had to stop the vote count and go in and replace votes for Biden and take away Trump votes.
Now, I will tell you, that's a woman I put great trust in. And if that is true, it would go down as the greatest election heist in history if Joe Biden wins this thing. It needs to be investigated because even before the election, U.S. intelligence agencies, computer scientists, and even a Georgia federal judge warned the potential for fraud in using Dominion's voter technology, writing it, quote, presents serious security vulnerability and operational issues caused by fundamental deficits and exposure. These risks are neither hypothetical nor remote under the current circumstances. That from a federal judge. Dominion election software was used in all of Georgia's counties for the first time this year. And we know the Georgia race right now is separated by about 12,000 votes. And it still hasn't been called. Joining us now is Republican Congressman Jody Hice of Georgia, a state that's already seen irregularities with these machines. Congressman, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Congressman, you and I were texting back and forth over the weekend. You see great problems with these. Do you think the problems that we saw in Michigan could be present in Georgia as well?
Yeah, listen, it's interesting that we're using the same software, the same company here, Dominion voting software, and their machines. Where there is smoke, there's fire. And the same type of problems that we saw in Michigan, we are having glitches in Gwinnett County in particular, right here in Georgia. What do those glitches mean? How many votes have been altered by those glitches? These are the type of things that we need to get answers for. And I think it's interesting, too, that not only is it Republicans calling on this. I remember last year, Jamie Raskin from Massachusetts in a hearing, he brought up the very alarming statistics and dangers of the Dominion software. And he's, of course, a high-ranking Democrat. So both sides of the aisle recognize that Dominion has a very poor track record. We need every one of these to be investigated so that we have an accurate count of legal votes.
And some of these reports show that you got ties to Dianne Feinstein's family, to Nancy Pelosi's family. You've got a Russian oligarch with ties to ownership in some of these voting system companies. How do we get it under control, and what can Congress do? Because right now there's really no regulations or oversight over these systems, is there?
Well, you're right, and that's one of the things that came up in the hearing this past year, that we need zero foreign involvement in our voting machines. It needs to be right here, and we need fair, transparent interaction between the companies and those keeping tabs of our votes that are occurring, and it needs to be in-house. It needs to be transparent. Both sides of the aisle involved in watching what's happening, and there is no reason in the world that we have foreign entities involved in watching over and tabulating our election results.
Yeah, it's eye-opening to say the least. So I just played you a soundbite from Sidney Powell. I've got another one I want you to listen to and then respond on the back end.
Well, obviously, they have invested in it for their own reasons and are using it to commit this fraud to steal votes. I think they've even stolen them from other Democrats in their own party who should be outraged about this also.
right, so she's talking about the people that have ownership in these systems, Democrats in particular. How do you get to the bottom of this? You're in Georgia, you got other states as well, but how do you get to the bottom of this and actually investigate it when I'm sure they're very sly at how they've been hiding this stuff and even getting into the source codes?
They are very sly. And you look at some of the things, and look, I don't know all the details of this, but I do know as little of information and knowledge that I have. This is as simple as a circle or a dash when it comes to voting for this person or that person. This is not that type of difficult kind of programming involved. It's a very simple yes or no when it comes to programming. So what that leads you to conclude is that there is some sort of nefarious activity going on here, which requires thorough investigation. That's what we've got to do at this point. I'm sorry.
You know, Congressman, I read some reports that people would check their ballots. It had the names of who they voted for on the ballot, but then they were using barcodes to actually record. Well, you and I and everybody out there, we don't read a barcode. We have no idea. And there were mismatches between what was written and the barcodes. These are things that have to be investigated. In Michigan, the contract with Dominion in Michigan, and I'd be curious if it says this in Georgia, it says in the agreement, we will not attempt to try to reverse engineer or derive the source code from the software. That's an agreement. Michigan said, hey, we're not going to go into it for you. That's wrong, flat out wrong, Congressman.
Absolutely. And look, if we lose, here's the danger of all of this. If we lose the integrity of our voting in this country, we lose everything. This is not something that we can brush under the rug. This is not something we can turn our head to. This is the type of thing that impacts every single person in this country, every state, every district, every election. We must, at all costs, put a top priority in maintaining the integrity of the voting system in the United States. And right now, there are an abundance of question marks, red flags that are coming up all over these, in particular, these 6 states as it relates to the president. We've got to get to the bottom of it. And look, there's a lot of time. This thing is far over. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I'm sure you will. Look, Congressman, you're in Georgia. It's ground zero right now. Get your rest, because you got fights ahead of you between the 2 Senate seats that will decide whether or not we control the United States Senate. You got the fight for votes still for the president there.